Danielle Gagne from Commercial UAV News, and today I am talking with Don Zoldi from P3 Tech Consulting. Hi, Don.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Today we're going to be talking about women in drones, and my first question is, what got you into drones?
That's easy. In 2012, I was working at Air Combat Command when I was in the Air Force, or what we call ACC. And at the time, Iraq was winding down and a lot of our big aircraft, our big Reapers and Predators were coming home. And so my project became, what are the rules that apply to domestic UAS? And so I dug deep into that and ultimately formed a group called the Domestic Imagery Working Group for the Department of Defense. And that ignited my passion, I think was your question. And during that time frame, that same time frame, around 2013, there was an explosion of state laws cropping up across the country that frankly could impact military bases. And so I started researching all of those, and my passion just continued. And so even as I moved on from ACC and I went to my next assignment at the Air Force Academy, I continued researching, speaking, writing, teaching on this subject. And ultimately, I linked up with a group called the International Conference on UAS, or ICUAS, and they're affiliated with IEEE, so all the engineers out there know what that is. And it was for the first time that we introduced into that conference a legal policy aspect to it. And that was about 2015. And it was a great marriage, I'd call it, because we had these great synergistic conversations between engineers, academics, lawyers, policymakers, really for the first time. And in 2018, we built a legal track for that conference. And it was great. And so ultimately wanted to keep that dream alive, and kind of grow it. And that all coalesced in 2019 when I won the Woman to Watch in UAS Award for leadership. And that just really opened the aperture for me. And that's actually when I started my company to do that very thing, to grow this event and this idea of law and policy and working with industry on these very important issues.
So you kind of talked a little bit about this. What do you see your role as in the drone industry?
Well, hopefully I can help shape it a little bit because, as you know, law and regulation and policy really are the means to propel this industry. And frankly, right now, they're probably the primary barrier. And so, my role right now as CEO of P3 Tech Consulting is, as my as my company's mission statement says, to work with people that are passionate about advanced technology platforms and give them the programs and the policies they need to succeed. That's really what P3 Tech is all about. And so our services include strategic planning and consulting, conference planning and execution, this Law Tech Connect brand that I've developed, which is a continuing legal education aspect to education, expert presentations, publications, editorial services and writing, and then advocacy coaching and training. So those are the major areas that I'm working in to help propel this industry. And actually, I'm really right now honored and privileged to work with several amazing organizations. And so if you want to learn more about my company and who I'm working with and the things I'm talking about, it's at www.p3techconsulting.com. I'm pretty active on Facebook and LinkedIn. I do have an Instagram and Twitter account, but frankly, I need to be better in those two areas. But you can find me out there and find my company.
So what are you most looking forward to seeing happen in the coming years?
This is going to sound a little Pollyannish, but honestly, I'm really looking forward to seeing this the drone industry soar, and literally the skies open up for not just drones but urban air mobility. And along those lines, I'm looking forward to seeing technology continue to advance in the areas of autonomy and AI, not just in the air, but also on the ground and in the sea. I mean, there's some really amazing things that are possible. And so maybe someday I'll be in my Tesla and it will really be driving me and not just a beta test, which I refuse to test out, to be honest with you. And maybe I'll fly in a pilotless taxi someday. But, so to make that all happen, I'm really looking forward to the day when like I said before, the legal and regulatory and policy barriers don't hamper progress, and that all of that is in place and that the required infrastructure is in place. And I think one other key aspect is that the public writ large, greets this community with open arms. And I think we've got a little bit of work to do there.
Definitely agree. And that leads us into the next question. What are some of the challenges you've had to overcome working with drones?
Well, like so many others in this industry, COVID, well, not just this industry, all industries, right? Our nation is really reeling right now from the COVID-19 pandemic. And you see that affecting the drone industry. As you know, Danielle, I did organize the Law Tech Connect event. It was going to be my inaugural event to work with commercial UAV and at the Paris Hotel. And I had formed a non-financial co-sponsorship with the American Bar Association Science and Technology Subcommittee. So we were going to have a one-day continuing legal education event, open to everybody, though. That was kind of the goal, and focus on the legal, regulatory, and policy, as well as ethical issues facing the advanced technologies with an emphasis on drones. And, we had world-class facility and all that. And as you know, it's been put on hold, and hopefully it's going to take off next year, like so many other things. And I'm hopeful, like everybody else, that this too shall pass, and that there's a day when we can all meet again in person. So that's the big thing on my horizon, and that's really, I think, that's been my biggest challenge so far, is starting this business. Almost right after I started it, the global pandemic hit. And so that's been a big challenge.
I can imagine. And, I'm really looking forward to the day that can get picked up too. The feelings mutual. I really was looking forward to moving that forward as well. I think the industry needs it. So who or what has inspired you, and why?
For me, it really started with my parents. My parents have always been my inspiration. I grew up as a little girl in Philadelphia, or Philly as we call it, in the 1970s. And you probably remember, maybe you don't, maybe you're too young, Danielle, but there might be some people out in the audience that remember Marlo Thomas's groundbreaking album about girl empowerment, called Free to Be You and Me. And, I had that album, and my parents really believed that, right? They instilled that in me. They told me that I could be anything I wanted to be, and they encouraged me from day one in my entire life, and have always supported me. And so I was really blessed to have my parents as my inspiration and always propping me up. And then as I got older, of course, and I met my husband, Bill, he has been an inspiration and complete rock for me, because especially when I met him before I joined the military. And so we weren't even married yet. And that was the conversation was, well, what are we going to do? And he said, I'll follow you anywhere. And so that was easy when he asked me to marry him. And to do that, he gave up a potentially promising career being a college football coach. I mean, he literally had a job lined up, and that was huge, because that was his dream. And so, as he followed me around and we started a family, there was a point when our second son was on the way, and he said, look, I'm just going to stay home and raise the boys. And I was like, really? And he was just like, yes. Why am I going to pay somebody else to raise our children when I can do that? And so he really became Mr. Mom throughout my career, and enabled me to do everything I was able to do in my Air Force career, including, culminate in the rank of colonel and come back here to the Air Force Academy. So I couldn't have done anything and wouldn't be where I am today without Bill, without my husband. And then last but least, what I'll say is there's been so many friends and mentors along the way, most of them in my Air Force career, or that I met through my Air Force career, because frankly, I just retired 2 years ago. So that's been the majority, and not only of my life, but definitely all of my adult life. And it started with Air Combat Command, and at the time, Brigadier General Christopher Burney was my boss, and he's the one that challenged me to dig into the domestic drone law and figure out the policy. And so you lay down a challenge accepted, and that's what sparked my passion. And then Major General retired Charlie Dunlap, who's now head of Duke's Law, Ethics, and National Security Center. I met him when I was brand new to the Air Force. I was a little lieutenant. I was Lieutenant Kopachinski, and he was also a Villanova Law grad, and we just hit it off. And he really took me under his wing my entire career, and always challenged me to publish. Which is not something that a lot of JAGs have time to do. And that, when I say JAGs, that's Judge Advocate. That's what I was as an Air Force lawyer. So General Dunlap's been a big inspiration because he's such a warrior scholar. Lieutenant General retired Jack Rives was the Judge Advocate General. And when I was a little more senior, actually just pinned on Lieutenant Colonel, and he gave me my first staff Judge Advocate, or almost like a general counsel job where I was in charge of an office. And he just gave me so many opportunities, and they were all leadership opportunities, which I always appreciate. And I still keep in touch with General Rives, and he's now, basically head of the American Bar Association. And then what I'll say is I actually had an Army general that was a huge inspiration to me. His name's Rich Gross. General Gross was my boss at United States Central Command. We both worked for, at the time, General Mattis. Mad Dog Mattis, and that was such an amazing time to be at CENTCOM. And he topped off his career as the chairman's legal counsel, or the head lawyer for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And so he was probably I'll just go out, I'll say he was the best boss I ever had. True servant and selfless leader. And then last but not least, I have to talk about Air Force retired Major General James Poss. He has his own company now. He's the CEO of ISR Ideas. And when I was considering starting my company, I had reached out to him because, we had met along the way and kept in touch, and I knew he had his company, and just really, again, just selflessly mentored me and continues to this day to help me and give me advice, and never asking anything in return, just wanting to see me succeed. And really appreciate. He was completely amazing. And one person I didn't mention that I'm going to mention here, because as I think about the inspiration for my company, and I think about General Poss, I would say the other person that was so critical to my success was my own brother. I have one brother. His name's Dan Kopachinski. He's amazing. He has started multiple companies. He's in the gaming industry, and he's an artist too. And he literally walked me through and helped me push the button on setting up my corporation. So that was so cool to do that together. And like I said, I'm so blessed to have a great family all around, and these wonderful mentors that inspired me throughout my career and continue to do so.
It really shows that it kind of takes a village to help support someone to get to where we're going. It's making those opportunities and being able to encourage other people and finding those mentors. So in what ways has the industry itself supported you through this journey so far?
Just to dovetail on what you just said, it takes a village. That's what this industry is. I mean, it's a small community, and you alluded to it, but I'll just outright say it. It's all about relationships, and people have just been so welcoming and helpful. And it's just, my network in the last just 6 months alone, even though it's been COVID, that is the one thing online, right? That's exploded. And I'm just meeting all kinds of people, even in the virtual environment. So that's been amazing. I've been able to forge some amazing strategic partnerships just since October, when I stood up my company. And I know, well, first of all, this because I wrote for you, Danielle. I wrote for Commercial UAV News, and boy, was that fun. a couple articles that we worked on together, whether it was about Chinese drones or remote ID, just so many. There's never a lack of topics to write about. Let's put it that way in this industry. And so along those lines, I'm now a legal columnist for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine. And so that's a lot of fun because I get to dig into all kinds of interesting issues. Every other month, I'm churning out an article for them. And in fact, they just hired me to write a column for GNSS magazine as well. So now I'll be doing both, and it's getting a little busy. But I like being busy. I also worked for Interdrone. They hired me on as an adjunct conference planner for their conference, and I'm a member of their advisory board. And then I'm an advisor to a number of, I will say, incredible groups. Some are nonprofits. Most of them are nonprofits, actually. Some are not. But the Urban Low Altitude Transport Association, Ultra. We did our first webinar last week in the middle of a hurricane. That was a good time. And women in drones. I helped them with their Women to Watch award, and Aerovot Solutions. I'm working with Darshan on some state level initiatives. Hopefully, will come to fruition here shortly. And then I'm working with drone responders too. So I probably missed somebody in there, but lots of great partnerships, working with a lot of different people, and it's been great.
I have to agree. I'm relatively new here, and it's been such a welcoming community, and everyone's willing to share and talk and bring you out their way and help you through it. And that's just been inspirational for me starting out here. And we've really enjoyed the articles you've written for us. So what are some ways that we can take what we already have, that support and encouragement of women in the drone industry, to the next level? And because the next level means a whole bunch of different people, how do you define that? What is the next level, and what does it look like to you?
The first thing I'll say is that obviously women can't succeed without the help of each other, but also importantly without the help of men. Now that might seem completely obvious, but sometimes I think we miss the point. It's good to have separate meetings and webinars and groups, but the ultimate future for me is one where there is a panel or a meeting or group, and it's completely mixed and seamless, and there's no need to highlight women because it's such a normal thing for women to be a part of that group and inspiring the people, right, the girls that are coming up behind all of us. And so that's kind of, I think, the second part of this, which is I think it's really important to have female role models out there for the next generation. I'm sure you've heard the saying, if you can see me, you can be me. And I was on a recent podcast with Sharon Rossmark from Women in Drones who said that. And, I thought about that. And I think it's equally important for the men to see those women succeeding. And so I kind of did a corollary to if you can see me, you can be me. It's if you can see them, then she can be them. And so this idea that, again, it's normalized for men to see a female CEO, to see female pilots, and that's not the exception to the rule. It's just the norm. And really, at the end of the day, the next level for women's equality in the drone industry, is really when they look around and they don't just say, oh, look, she's so successful. She's a successful woman in this industry. Instead, they just say, look how successful she is. Not that she's a successful woman, but that she's successful entrepreneur, or she's, a successful CEO or pilot, or pick your noun. That to me is the ideal state.
And so finally, how do we reach that ideal state? What are some of the things that we can start doing today to get more women into the drone industry in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mentioned this just a minute ago, but it really starts with the next generation and inspiring girls to get into STEM. And, they need diverse role models as teachers. And when I say diverse role models, there are mostly women that are teaching in our school system. I'm talking about in the STEM classes. Ones like Megan Salter, who won a Woman to Watch award with me for education, that's in West Virginia, bringing drones into the classroom and outside, of course, and teaching all of the kids about drones, like hands-on. Sharon Rossmark in Women in Drones is doing this actively. She's got training modules on her website and things like that. And just last week, I spoke with Skydio, some of the folks from there, and they are launching an initiative to inspire more women to enter the industry. And so all of these efforts, I applaud them, and I hope that other folks follow suit and do the same. It's more than education though, right? So that's more for the next generation. What about this generation? And what I would say to that, and to the companies out there that are looking to hire, look in the mirror. What does your C-suite look like? Pull up your website and objectively step back and look at it. We're doing this now a little bit, in another context, with regards to racial inequality. When you start looking at artifacts, you start looking at your social media posts, or what are the stock photos you're putting up? Are they all men? Are they all white men? I ask this question because I think it's something many folks don't think about, but it sends a message. And so I ask you, can you see me there? Can you see me in your C-suite or on your website? And if the answer is no, me or people like me, or people of color like Sharon, and if the answer is no, then maybe you need to kind of look a little deeper at what your hiring practices are, because I think you really need to look at folks' skills, abilities, and the fact that they may bring a different perspective to the workplace. I know we hear a lot about this, and people that hear this term diversity and inclusion, and they feel like it's a program. It's not a program. It's a way of life. It's a way of actually bringing different ideas to the table, which can only make your company better. And so that's what I would say about that. And then finally, not just in this industry, but more, writ large in our country, and of course, globally, a big challenge is equal pay for equal work. I don't want to sound radical here, but if I'm doing the same job as the guy sitting next to me, and I'm doing an equally good job, which I guarantee you I will, because knowing myself, I will, then I should get the same pay. And what I say to that is, not only will it motivate more women to enter this market, but it will inspire them to stay here and not walk away. And so that's really what I'd have to say to your question.
Great answer and great ideas. Thank you so much, Dawn, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's been a pleasure, as always, working with you and the commercial UAV team. And, thanks everybody out there that took the time to listen. I hope maybe I said something that makes you think a little bit differently, because that's really, I think, the point of all of this, right? And so,
Absolutely.
again, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for the opportunity.